I have never forgot that. But oh, Jimmy. But people, let me be very honest with you here. We played a year or two there for the national championship, and then 2 or 3 years later we won one. But I can promise you this. No one we played was better than Stephen F. Austin. And no coach was better than Sue Gunter. Here's the way I kind of look at it. I'm so appreciative for you people who had a vision to not forget history. Because a lot of people would never be doing what you're doing today. I'm telling you, you deserve a lot of credit for that. Because here's my way of looking at it. If there was a Mount Rushmore for coaches, and I've been in it 25, 30 years, and I've seen them since 1977, so I've seen most of them, players and coaches. If there was a Mount Rushmore for coaches, Margaret Wade, Pat Summitt, Jody Conrad, and Sue Gunter would be those four that I'd put up there. I congratulate all of you, and thanks for inviting me.
Since Leon got up here and nobody threw anything, I felt fairly secure. You know, I have so many memories about Nacogdoches, and this is great to see so many people that I know and I appreciate. I feel like I'm at a family reunion. And some special times on that road from, first of all, Sam Houston to Nacogdoches, and then later from the University of Texas to Nacogdoches. At one point, you're exactly right, I said, I am not going back to Nacogdoches unless somebody makes me. And, you know, Sue Gunter made me. Today, it was important. I wanted to be here, and I appreciate that opportunity. As I look around the room, I see so many people that had such a part in not only promoting basketball, women's basketball at SFA, but in promoting women's basketball across the country. Yes, I remember so many times when this gymnasium was filled, or when Stephen F. Austin came to the University of Texas, we had our first really large crowd when Stephen F. Austin came to play the University of Texas in the late 70s. I think we had more than 10,000 people at a game, and that was a first, and it was something that hadn't happened anywhere else in the country. But I can tell you that I remember those days too, when if there had been this many people at a game, we would have known somebody's family was in town. So things evolved over time, and it seemed like it was rather slow moving at that point in time. But when you look back now and think about where we were and where we are today, and the opportunities that have been provided for these young players, as Leanne mentioned, and you're right. I say this is the generation, we've named them now, the millenniums. Is that what we're going to call them? If it hasn't happened in the last 10 minutes and it's not about them, they don't have much appreciation for what happened previous. And I think it is all of our responsibilities to let them know that Sue Gunter, Leon Barmore, people who were willing at that early time to step forward and provide opportunities for young women to showcase their abilities and to let people know that it was really great for women to have an opportunity to be in a non-traditional role, to do things that had not been done previously, and to do it in a way with pride and enthusiasm and the spirit that all of these teams showed. I want to say that as I was coming over here, I was thinking about all the great players that played in this program too. And I thought, okay, I don't think there'll be any one-on-one going on, but there might be a shooting contest, so I insisted that Kathy Harson come with me. I don't think she's going to take you on, Rosie, one-on-one, but if we have to shoot, I think I have somebody that might be able to hold her own. And as we were coming over here, she and I tried to remember all the times that we had come to Stephen F. Austin, and it was the destination. If you wanted to establish yourself as a premier basketball program, you had to do that through Stephen F. Austin, through the Lady Jacks. Sue was not a Texas native, but I don't think there's anyone who left a longer shadow in this state than Sue did with what she started here in Nacogdoches, Texas. I think her power was probably legend. I don't know of anyone else that was able to, for a period of time, change the school colors at the institution where they were. I didn't know for the longest time that Stephen F. Austin's colors were purple and white. I thought it was red, white, and blue. And in fact, I was coaching at Sam Houston, and their colors are orange and white, as you'll see in the game today, but I thought for a while their colors were blue and orange because we all had to buy uniforms. The only company making uniforms for women's athletics was Broderick. And they didn't start out with a whole rainbow of colors. They had about 4 colors. So you picked the colors that you liked, and that's what color your uniforms were. So Stephen F. Austin, in my mind, were the Lady Jacks, and they were red, white, and blue, and that was the legacy that Sue delivered. I think Sue's record speaks for itself. Obviously, the wins are recorded in history, and everybody knows that. But what people who didn't have an opportunity to know about Sue, and that's really not the people in this room, but I think in the coaching profession, it's a pretty competitive, cutthroat business. And you generally have a little trouble crossing the line between being competitive with your fellow coaches and being friends. But I would bet that if you ask all the coaches who Sue came in contact with over her whole lifetime in coaching, who were the people that you considered in the profession that were your friends, I know that Sue Gunter's name would be at the top of that list, because she had a very special way of making you feel like you were her friend, that you were special to her, and then it didn't end when you stepped on the court and you became competitive with your teams. Sue was a friend. She was important to all of us who had an opportunity to know her. And rather than focus on how good she was as a coach, I'm going to tell you one story. I've told it many times, and some of you have heard it before, but I think it exemplifies what Sue Gunter was about. I had some time at Sam Houston and some success against Stephen F. Austin there, but then I went to UT Arlington and started a basketball program, and we were really bad. And Carla Lowry, who had been there previous to me, was instrumental in my taking the job there. But as Carla knows, we didn't have basketball players. We had some really good volleyball players. So when it came time for basketball season, we asked those volleyball players to play basketball. In fact, if I look back now at the pictures of those, I coached 3 teams at the University of Texas at Arlington. I coached volleyball, basketball, and softball. And if I looked at the team pictures today, I would not know which team it was because the people in those first years were the same. The only way I could distinguish which team it was to look at the socks, because the basketball players had longer socks and the volleyball players had none, and the softball players, they wore the hose. So I could tell in that regard. But we were in a structure unlike NCAA where we played in geographic regions. And I remember that tournament in Edinburgh. We played in some very remote, unlikely places. But we were in the same district with Stephen F. Austin. So you can imagine that we played a couple of times in district, and then we had to play in zone, and we played them, seemed like 3 or 4 times during that same year. And every time we played them, they killed us. They kept beating us over and over. So we're now ready to go to the regional tournament, and it was in Magnolia, Arkansas. And we had a very limited budget, but we all managed to get there. And as tournament brackets go, you have, if it is a consolation bracket, if you win your first game, you advance to the right, and if you lose, you advance to the left. And if there was an uneven number of teams, then you had a bye, meaning that you didn't play in the first round. And those byes went to the really good teams. And Sue's team had a first round bye. And UT Arlington was really bad, and we didn't have a bye. So we had to play a first round game. And if we won that game, then our reward was to get to play Stephen F. Austin for the 4th time. And so we had gone up and we had checked into our hotel, and we had played our first round game, and I don't remember who we played, but we win. So now we're going to play Stephen F. Austin. Well, because they'd beaten us 3 times previous, Sue decides that they'll save a little money and they'll not come up until the day of the game. So they drive up from Stephen F. Austin, and I look at the bracket and I'm going, okay, we did good, we won our first game, now we're going to lose this second game and go home. So I'm going to go ahead and check out of the hotel because we don't really have a lot of money, so that'll save some money. So I checked out of the hotel and I paid for the rooms with the cash that I had because I thought, okay, I'm not going to need this cash, instead of putting on a credit card, I'll pay for it and go home. So we go to the game and we play, and as things sometimes happen in athletics, we beat Stephen F. Austin. And I'm going, oh my goodness, we don't have any rooms. And I don't have any money. And now we're going to have to stay here and play another day. And Sue, on the other hand, they had not checked into their rooms yet, and because they were thinking they would play the game and then they'd go to the hotel. So I had to go to Sue after that game and say, Sue, could you loan me some money? And could we use those rooms that you had? And you know what? As gracious as she always was, she said, sure. I'll call and tell them you're taking the rooms, and I'll give you this $200 or whatever it was that I have in my pocket so that your team can stay here and play. Would that happen today? I doubt it. But those are the kinds of memories that I have about those early days and those special times about Sue Gunter, the kind of person she was. And yes, she was a coaching colleague. She was successful. She was one of the best coaches that our game has ever known. But most of all, I think I would describe her just as I think all of you in this room would. Sue Gunter was a wonderful person and a wonderful friend who we have such tremendous respect and warm feelings about. And yes, it's sad to think about how short-lived her life was. But I think that has a flip side, and that flip side is think about what she started, what she contributed, and how her legacy will always be not only important to Stephen F. Austin and the athletic program here, but how important it is to women's basketball in general. And for the opportunity to be a small part of that, I really say thank you for doing the right thing. Those of you administrators and regents, you don't realize what this means to all of us who knew and loved Sue and counted her as our friend. And I'm very happy that I've had the opportunity to come back to Nacogdoches one more time.
Good afternoon. Coach Conrad, I want you to know, don't worry about any shootout today, because if that's the case, I'm going to need an electric wheelchair to get from one end of the court to the other. First, I want to give honor to whom honor is due here today. I feel so honored to speak on behalf of the Lady Jacks here at Stephen F. Austin. And we want you all to know I really appreciate you all honoring Coach Gunter, because she was a great lady and still is. And I think I am so grateful that we have a chance to come together, Jody Conrad and the University of Texas, Leon Baltimore, and the Louisiana Tech. Oftentimes we meet on different ends of the basketball court. We out for one reason, and that is to defeat the other one. But today we stand in the arena to honor the great Sue Gunter, the legend, and her spirit. And I want to talk about some of the things that at first I was going to call some of the Lady Jacks and ask them some of their stories, but I figured out I have stories of my own, so I decided to share. And also you got Barbara and Doris may come a little later, but I want you to know something about Sue Gunter. She made each and every one of us players feel special. When she talked to you, you had her undivided attention, and you felt like you were the only one in the room. She was understanding. I remember once I went in her office, I thought I had a problem. And the way she approached the problem when I left, I found out I really didn't have a problem at all. And then she was an encourager. She encouraged us on the basketball court, and also she knew something in life that once we left Stephen F. Austin, once our basketball career was over, that we needed an education to fall back on. So she encouraged each and every one of us to do the best that we possibly can on the court and in the classroom. And another thing about Coach Gunter, I know you all can say Sue, but I just got to say Coach Gunter because that's just me. And she was like the giant of basketball. She was one of the greatest. And she was genuine. But I looked at her as a gangster coach. Because, you know, oftentimes we'd be out there on the court practicing, and she'd come out of the office, and it was something about that ramp. You would see her smiling at the top of the ramp, and by the time she got to the end of the ramp, she had no smile. And she was serious about coaching, whatever she was doing. It was serious time. And then often when she go back up the ramp, by the time she get middle ways the ramp, she start back to talking and smiling. And I'm saying, that is a gangster coach. And she was out for one reason. When she went to your place, she was out to defeat you. And she made us feel like that we could beat any team, no matter who, Louisiana Tech, the LSU, the University of Texas. She made us feel like that when we stepped on that court, that we could defeat anyone. And then she was unique in her own way. Because one day I was in practice, and she said, "Now, Walker, if you jump a little higher, I might can slide this piece of paper up under your foot." And that let you know I wasn't jumping very high. So I probably was upset that day. And then she was nice. I didn't know she was nice because when I first come to Stephen F. Austin, I only knew her on the basketball court. One day I happened to go into her office, and she seen me before I was going to throw the paper down and run out. But she ought to, "Walker!" And I said, "Oh, Lord, what this mean lady want?" So I walk into her office, and she was the nicest person I have ever met. And oftentimes, but you don't want to meet up on the basketball court, and you don't want to meet her up in practice because you would think she was very nice. But she was a nice person. She was all about the team. And she was the glue that held our team together. And I appreciate that about her. And she let me know one thing. This is what I told my players. My relationship on the basketball court has nothing to do with you in my office or if I see you walking around campus anywhere. Because when I was on the basketball court, I was just like Coach Gunter. All smiles was gone, and I was out to practice so I can go to your place and defeat you. And another thing, she was easygoing. I mean, she just sit around looked like nothing bothered her. She was all until she got on the basketball court, but she was very easygoing. And the last thing, y'all don't know, I just spelled out Coach Gunter's name. And the last thing is the R. And I'm going to go for Rosie. And I want to appeal to the university coaches concerning stats and records. Concerning our junior college players coming over, and some of these girls are breaking our records in 4 years. And if you would just take one more sheet of paper and just, for the girls, for the future, my past is gone. I don't have to worry about it. I was a pioneer. I got dust in my throat, and now the game of basketball is big thing now. But for the girls in the future, if you could just add one more sheet